Good morning, everybody. Just wanted to give a couple of tips and tricks with some baby citrus trees and just baby fruit trees overall in general. Some of the things that I like to do, aside from just keeping them healthy and giving them the nutrients they need, is while they're putting out their new growth, this is maybe 2 weeks old at the most, and this is just a couple days old. Something that will help them grow even more and send out more shoots is what I like to call light pruning. And it's basically, the other day I came out and I took a bunch of cuttings off of all my citrus. And this guy was one of them. I only snipped off 2 little branches. I snipped off the end of this guy right here. Just snipped him off. And then I had another branch that was attached down a little lower here. It was right here. And I just snipped it right off. Just took it for a cutting. And what that does is it causes a lot of new growth and bud swelling to happen. So basically this guy's going to send out more branches, as well as the fruits that are on here have started to get a little bigger and they're actually growing. So you'll send energy down back around through the entire plant or tree when you do that. And that wasn't the only one that I did that with. I also did it with my improved Meyer lemon. I took some cuttings, as well as I added a ruby red grapefruit graft there and there. I don't think this one's going to take. This is more of an experiment to see if I can do it. But along with that, the cuttings that I took afterward has started to cause bud swelling and new growth to come out, as well as making the lemons swell that are on here. It's really a good way to just cause new growth to start happening as well. If you've had a plant or a tree that's a young fruit tree and it just all of a sudden like stopped producing new growth, if you've given it everything that it needs to keep it happy and it's just stopped producing new growth, then giving it a light pruning can really help. This Fukumoto navel orange, it had an orange growing on it, but it was just taking a little too much energy, so I removed it. And since I removed it, all this new growth has been coming out really fast and really strong. I even took a few cuttings off of this guy. Basically, if you have a tree or a plant or anything like that of that nature that you're trying to get some new fresh growth going on because it just slowed down, or maybe it's starting to die back a little bit, have some issues because of the heat, you know, aside from watering it enough, just give it a light pruning. You know, this coffee plant, the top of it got a little bit of bug damage, but you see the new leaves are growing out because it's still happy. Now, if it ever stopped, what I would do is just clip the little very top of that off. I'm going to move this out of direct sunlight. They don't like direct sunlight. But anyways, I would just clip the very top of it off. Or like with this tomato plant. I pluck off all my tomato suckers, and if they're tall enough, I root them. If they're not, I just let them compost on the ground. But I do root them and regrow them and reuse them because, you know, they'll grow into full-size tomato plants. And that's also, you know, you can do that with some of your cuttings as you're pruning too, is where I'm going with that. Is if you take a big enough cutting when you're doing a light pruning, you can root it. Just scar up the bottom of it with the scarification, you know, just a little, take a razor or even just a sharp knife and just scar up the bottom of it a little bit and put some root hormone on. Many things don't even need rooting hormone either. Many things like fig trees or grapevines, if you just scar them up when you take a cutting, they'll grow. Just like this. That's what these did. That's what I'm doing back here in the greenhouse. Right here. I just took a bunch of cuttings off my Glenora vine 2 days ago, and these guys are doing great so far. There's no rooting hormone on them. I just took the cuttings and I scarred up the bottom, and there we go. Now, if I did it proper, they should root within about 3-4 weeks, but we won't really know until we start seeing new growth come out. So we'll keep an update on that. My cocoa trees are doing amazing. I keep one in the greenhouse and I keep one outside the greenhouse. Of course, in the wintertime, they're both going to have to be in the greenhouse because cocoa trees can't handle really low temperatures. So, bell pepper. That's one of my overwintering ones. Sometimes I like to keep them small and let them grow slow because they're a really good pepper and I want to keep it for a long time, but I just don't want to grow it this season. So, it's been in here the whole time, hanging out with my basil plant. This is my sweet basil tree, and I have an Italian basil tree in the back. I call them my basil trees. This one is about 3 or 4 years old now, think it's 4 years old now. Thought it was dead over the winter time because it just stayed all woody, but no, every time it goes to seed, I just cut it back and it regrows. Super yummy, super basil-y. Yeah, buddy, I love that stuff. But anyways, that's basically all I got for you today, folks. Do a light pruning if you want to see more growth on some of your plants and fruit trees to help them get more thick girth on their tree trunks themselves, or just to be able to get some new growth popping out. Especially if you have like an apple tree or a pear tree or just a baby fruit tree that you're trying to just get it to girth up a little bit. At the beginning of the season, the trunk of this tree was maybe as thick as this upper branch right here. It wasn't very thick at all. And so what I did earlier this summer, and I'm going to do it again here in a minute, is pruned off all of these new growth tips. My summer pruning. You can do it once, sometimes twice in a summer, and it'll be okay as long as you don't take too much off. And I do it to my other dwarf apple tree over here too that suckers up really tall. You see it over there in the sunlight, maybe. It's a little bit of a lens flare, but that tree back there is suckering a whole lot with the apples that are on it, as well as my Honeycrisp apple tree. It has a little bit of bud swelling going on for next year, I think, but it's just not big enough to have any blossoms on it this year. But I've thickened up the trunk a lot. It was so thin, you see it's got this bend to it because it was thinner and it was bending over from its own weight. But now that it's growthed up a bit, I'm thinking about staking it up over this way a bit and bending it back up and then pruning it again so it growths up that way. Just haven't decided when I want to do that. But yeah, do a light pruning. It'll make them girth up, it'll make them put out new growth. Just make sure that before you do any of that, that the plant already has everything else it needs. That you have been giving it a good watering schedule, that you have been giving it the fertilizer and nutrients that it needs. Because if you just go right to, oh, I want to prune it, well, you don't want to do that to a plant that's not healthy, because then you're just killing it. It doesn't have the energy to put into the new growth that you're telling it to put out. So, got to be a little bit careful there. Anyways, if you like what I'm sharing with you guys, please like and subscribe to my channel, and share this video with your friends. You know, let them know that I'm here to help out, and give me some comments to what else I can give you guys videos on. Thanks.